Hunting for and cutting out source images that you're going to use in your collage work is one of the most exciting moments in the process, because you get to just get absorbed in beautiful imagery, see what calls to you in the moment. And then once you find an image you want to work with, the first thing to do is to get it out of the book without tearing it. So I like to use a blade, like an X-Acto knife or other blade, and cut as close to the book binding as possible so that I get as much of the image as I possibly can. I also always like to check on the other side of the page to make sure I haven't missed something better there before I start cutting. And then I determine whether I want to use larger scissors or smaller. This piece doesn't really have any intricate tiny cuts. It's a lot of long lines, and so I would use my big scissors for this. And then I just remember to keep my scissors pointing forward, keep them straight as I rotate the image. And it's a lot more fun if you can do this part on fast forward. Just kidding. If you want to use an image and there's something on the back that you do want to save, sometimes it's totally doable. You can kind of measure with your finger and see where it comes to on the other side and make some smart decisions about whether or not you can use both of them or parts of both. In this case, I was totally in the clear to cut out these ladies and keep the lady on the back too, which always makes me happy. So I cut them out first with my big scissors, and then I do the more subtle, intricate cuts with my small scissors, just like we did before. And I cut right through lines sometimes to get to those center pieces that I want to cut out. Some people will do this only with an X-Acto knife, and I do that sometimes as well, but X-Acto knives tend to rip the paper sometimes for me. So I prefer to use scissors whenever possible. I think they just make a more precise cut, but we can talk about both of those. And this is going fast, so I'm going to show you in a minute a little bit slower what I did here, cutting out these little beige portions that I didn't want in the image. So right here I cut right through her arm to be able to get that out, and luckily it's right along this line so it's not visible. Same thing up here. I ended up separating her hand face situation here to get to that part right under her chin that I wanted to cut out. And once everything's glued down, you won't be able to see those lines anyway. I did the same thing at the bottom with the dresses. I'll show you how they can come apart. But again, once they're glued, that will not be visible. The last thing that I want to talk to you about when using scissors is that you may have noticed I always keep the image that I'm cutting out toward the midline of my body for my scissors. So I'm right-handed. I use the scissors with my right hand. I try whenever possible to keep the image to the left so that I can really see that line. If the line were to the right of my scissors, the scissors obscure the line, and it's really tricky. I'm just kind of doing guesswork. So if I can rotate the image and keep it to the left side, in my case, if you're left-handed, you keep it to the right side, then you're going to get much more precise cuts. And for this little girl, astronaut, you can see I'm skipping some things that are extra tricky, like right in the cups of her hands. There's stuff I want to cut out, but I'm going to save that to the very end. And I kind of work my way in from the largest cuts I need to do down to the very tiniest, subtlest bits that I do at the very end, and I put my face right up to it to make those cuts. And because this cut's so tiny, there's a little bit of white around her fingers. You can even touch that up with a beige colored marker and make it look really perfect.